We're moving on to conditional use 2023-00056.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Philip Ziegenbergen with the planning department. First case before you is a conditional use application for an accessory apartment located at 703 North Clara. Structure to bring an existing accessory apartment compliance. What's interesting is in the 50s when this was built, the tax appraiser's website actually understands that there's two dwellings on this site. This was not some sort of thing that went under the fly with the guest cottage. Back then, there was some theories of life back when, just with high manufacturing trying to just provide opportunity for more housing. Maybe just coming back. At that time. My understanding is that they're trying to get a separate electrical meter connected to the other one, which is allowed by the zoning code for an accessory apartment. So during that process of getting separate electricity meter, we put in with Discovery, so they're just going through the process to make it legal. The site, like I said, has been there for some time. They are allowed to have one per property. The two should be compatible. This one is. It looks like it fits in the neighborhood. The water and the sewer still have to stay under ownership with the main dwelling, but all the other utilities like electricity can be separate if they choose to. I haven't had any public comment about this. This was the planning commission last week or I'm sorry, November 30th. And it was approved 12-0 by the planning commission. Any questions?
Any questions from Deb? Any questions from the public? Ellie?
And it did seem like it, the trim on the east side looked like it might have originally been a garage.
Could have been.
And then they built
Yeah.
on the side, but I think that's perfectly compliant. Second.
Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Can I get who made the motion again? Okay, and who seconded?
I did.
Okay, we're gonna move on to conditional use 2023-00057.
This is property located at 2029 North Salina. It's got a driveway that touches 29th Street, but it's almost about a quarter mile south of 29th Street. And it's the property that has all the radio towers on it. It's zoned single family residential. They're requesting a conditional use. Essentially to replace a tower that used to be there. But it's been about 7 years from what I understand that the tower was moved. The original tower was 519 feet tall. The replacement tower they're requesting is 499 feet tall. Because of the height of the tower and now that this tower has to be in compliance with the zoning code, I guess the caveat to that is there's evidence to show that the existing radio towers existed prior to the zoning standards, because based on their height, they would all be too tall technically for the existing zoning. But since the one was removed, they have to go through the conditional use process to replace it. There's high compatibility standards for wireless towers, whether they're radio or cell towers. This is a radio tower. That is a 1-to-1 ratio, so usually you would have to be the same distance away from the property line as you are tall. Anna, can you scroll down to the site plan, please? Oh, there you go. It's good. A little bit more. So the one in the black, that's where the original tower was. The triangle or the three-legged thing in the red is the new tower. This is one of those slender towers, like the existing ones on the side where they have guide wires, not self-supporting. And so that's what the 3 dots around it indicate. So it is farther away from the property lines. The red circle around it would be possibly the fall zone. It's one of those things that depending on the force put against it, it could topple on top of itself. I don't necessarily know the likelihood of it falling directly one direction. And obviously there's 3 sets of guide wires and those are there to stabilize it and ensure that it's not falling on other properties. The other towers have been there for some time and none of them have fallen over. they engineer these things so that they don't. And so, it has to request a waiver from the compatibility height standards because it is not 499 feet away from the property lines. It's 260 feet from the north property line and 275 feet from the east property line. But otherwise, in terms of the south and the west, there wouldn't necessarily be any issue crossing over the property line if it were to do that. Again, it's a 36-inch lattice structure. Technically, we discussed that lattice structure should be discouraged, but those are the self-supporting lattice structures. Think of like I-135 in Murdoch, where you have that like really big scaffolding looking self-supporting. Those are a lot more visually intrusive than necessarily slender ones with the guy wires. It kind of blend in the sky sometimes. I have not heard any public comment on this one. It was kind of one of those things, a little bit wait for it because there wasn't for about a 500-foot tower, but haven't heard anything. Maybe it's because folks who live around there realize there used to be one that tall about 7 years ago. So it's in a combination of conformance and partial conformance to the plan, mostly because of its height. There might be some safety hazards with this, depending on if it were to fall, there is a fall zone, but it could crumple on itself. Obviously, it's supported by guy wires and engineered and designed not to fall over, things of that nature. Staff is recommending approval of this subject to the conditions in the staff report, was pretty standard for wireless towers. I believe they've already gotten their determination from hazard by the FAA. Our airport is aware of this and they have no issues based on the location. So there shouldn't be any disruption to Eisenhower or Jabara, which are what the airport authority governs. It has not been to the planning commission yet. It's going on Thursday. So I don't have any information for you with that. And I can send you sheets.
Any questions?
Not a question, just a standard comment when I don't hear public comments on anything bigger than 20 feet is just that the notification process for these things is.
Right, so we're gonna have to notify based on the 14-acre subject site. And so it was a fairly large notification area. And I would tell you I think it'll be February, knowing January is just a weird DAP situation for all of the DAPs. I think they're only meeting because of us. But don't worry, DAP in January is like minimal. There's hardly any cases, which is great. But we are working on bringing the conversation about notification that the council has been working on to the DAPs as kind of the next step. So to that point.
Exactly. Look forward to Merry Christmas.
And I know the applicant is here if anyone has any questions or if you'd like to say anything. Anybody?
I might just add, that tower that was taken down was over 60 years old. It was built in the 50s. And it was one of the original FM towers in Wichita, Kansas, when FM started. The replacement on this at the time, when it came down, I had already gotten the approval through the city. But at the same time, I got 7 construction permits to build FM radio stations throughout the state. And unfortunately, I ran out of funds. So I've got funds coming back. But that 60-year-old tower, the reason it was tore down is because we do normal maintenance on these towers. They did a wind load stress test on that tower. And as it was standing there by itself, it did not pass the stress test with nothing on it. So it was determined that the only safe way was to tear it down and rebuild. So that's why it was tore down. And we have tower climbers on our towers virtually every year, and they always do inspections when they're on it. So in the radio business, we make sure that our money-making properties don't fall down.
Yeah. Any other questions? If not, would anyone be willing to make a motion?
I move we approve reconstruction.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to conditional use 2023-0059.
You're probably located at 320 West 21st Street. It's a former KPTS radio station, television station. And The applicant came to us with an application for an event center. I reached out, she turned it in and said, do you plan to possibly allow women in alcohol? And she said, yeah, probably. I'm like, let's have a conversation about nightclubs in the city. So technically they're asking for nightclub in the city. That is also coming to council very soon. Not next week unfortunately, but we missed one of this middle deadline, but it is early next year to finally put that in the event. So this is technically not a club in the city, but it is one event center. Which can be rented out periodically to all kinds of groups, but if they happen to have entertainment and alcohol, they have to be required to do it this way still right now, but it's coming to a close where it will be eventually called an entertainment establishment. So at least to help get rid of the stigma of the word nightclub. You know, even if they're like, I'm not sure about like me actually owning a nightclub. It's really not, but
It's good.
so
Yeah, oh, yeah.
yeah, this property is located just east of Waco. There's a commercial property to the south of it. There's also some residential property to the south. What's interesting about the surrounding area of this side is there's a mixture of general office and limited commercial zoning work there, but they're actually developed with single family homes. So that just makes it a little tricky because technically they're not required to have screening. There is a 6-foot fence there already, but if it were to go down. But the building is actually pretty set back on the property. And everything is really within the building. We don't have an outdoor patio. My understanding is they don't expect to have one, so all events would be inside. There is a cell tower on the property as well. You know, along this 21st Street corridor, there's a lot of interaction between commercial and residential for some time. It's not part of Wichita. So because of the proximity to residential to north, knowing you have a north building line, and if you have anything going on, obviously sound does bleed through walls sometimes. And Wichita doesn't have a noise ordinance, so they would have to comply with those things. And one of the ways we try to minimize noise and impacts of the properties is hours of operation for the entertainment. You know, these hours of operation I'm going to talk about aren't necessarily applying to the event center. It would be to the entertainment, just because they are pretty close proximity to a house to the north. I think my guesstimate measurement in GIS was about 27 feet. So it's pretty close. All of that to say, staff is recommending approval. The comprehensive plan identifies it as a mixture between commercial and residential. The residential is the parking lot area. The commercial land uses is for the KPDS structure or former KPDS structure. So we have conditions of approval in the staff reports. But the nightclub in the city applies to ancillary, is only ancillary associated to an event center that allows it to not actually become a nightclub. And it has to first be an event center and then it can have entertainment. Basically, meaning it doesn't have daily hours like a nightclub typically would. You know, it's just open to the public. These are events that people pre-schedule and have invites to and things like that. Has adhered to supplementary use regulations, no music or alcohol consumption outside at any time. And then the hours of operation where we have weekdays, so Monday through Thursday, having entertainment, so the music for the entertainment, DJ, live music, things like that. Ending at 8 p.m. and on the weekend, on Friday and Saturday, 11 p.m. and Sunday, 8 p.m. as well. Again, that's just for the music. That doesn't mean that the facility has to adhere to those hours. You know, we have a corporate event that goes to online, but doing your big bell or something like, I don't know, just pretty tame events. We don't want to like shut the event down, the event center down at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday if they don't have things that are going to cause neighbors a headache. So, you know, the entertainment would have to end, but the event center could operate on hours. There's other pretty standard things regarding, you know, noise, which is language coming out of the zoning code. I provided you guys or sent it to Anna, I believe she sent it out to you guys, a comment I received late last week, after I'd sent Anna the staff report. So that was, for you to consider. And other than that, that was the only comment that I heard about it. Surrounding context, if you guys remember, just to the south, right on the south side of the shopping center of Waco, we heard of a similar type of case earlier this year. Again, very similar to the event center, but they might have alcohol and entertainment. That one was approved. And I can stand for any questions that you might have.
The agent or applicant
So
here.
Yes, sir.
Philip, I guess I'm just a little bit concerned. I'm glad you brought that up because I was gonna ask about the property on the southeast corner of Waco 21st. I guess I'm just a little concerned about creating a, for lack of a better term, I'm gonna call it a nightclub in the city. Or by doing this, by having two approved facilities just right across the street from each other with residential property all around them. That's just a concern. Did you guys take any of that into consideration about the amount of activity and?
We did, what's tricky about these is as with being event centers, they could be rented out for a number of different things. The purpose wasn't necessarily where every event's gonna have music or every event's gonna have alcohol or even have them combined. It's just a matter of, you know, it could generate a lot of activity if both have something, but both of these facilities, especially the one on the south side, considering the scale of them, they're not very large buildings, so their meeting capacities aren't necessarily very large either. So you have an event there, you're not having 500 people showing up, even if you did two of them combined. So I see what your point is, and I understand your point. There is residential, but that's why we put hours of operation in the conditions. One, that nightclub in the city has to be associated with events center, so that we avoid any opportunity for it to truly become nightclubs. And then the hours of operation help mitigate possible noise that is generated by them if they have music or a DJ or something like that. Yes, sir.
If the property to the north, because you said that one was zoned
Geo.
if it was zoned for TF 1 or 3 or any of those, that you would have the screening on that
Yes.
property line as well.
Would require it. Yes.
Okay. Is that something this board would consider as adding the voting additional condition?
You can.
Okay.
Like I said, I think there is an existing one there. Who knows if it's the property owner to the north of this one, but it would actually ensure that it has to remain. Or that if it somehow comes down, the responsibility of this property owner to place it.
Any more questions?
So the parking lot is to the east is gonna be part of their,
Yes, it is. It was KPTS's parking lot as part of the application area. So they have some of the immediate parking around the building and then the parking on the other side of the alley. The alley is still functioning. The alley is not vacated. They cannot block the alley. The alley still has to remain open. It just happened to be that they also own parcels on the other side of the alley.
I'm just curious about light intrusion also, if there's events going on late in the day and how tall the light poles will be and.
So they have to adhere to the standards of the zoning code for lighting. All lighting has to be downward and directed away from property lines. Cannot be more than 15 feet tall. So they're, you know, if they don't already have lighting, they can't put huge lights in the parking lot or anything like that.
Any other questions?
There been any interaction with that property owner to the north?
I am not aware, no.
this KPTS was pretty quiet.
Anyone want to entertain a motion?
That's one of the changes. So
Yes, these,
I'll make the motion to approve with the additional condition to require the screening of the north property. Is that right?
For a second,
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Moving on to our last conditional use, 2023-0061.
This is a conditional use at 1110 North Emporia. This is just north of the St. Francis Hospital complex. It is currently occupied by the Wichita Children's Home. I believe it's something, I don't think they're moving out. I think they're just looking to be able to stay in their operation. The property is zoned B multifamily residential. I think you're on the PUD. We're on Con 61. But the request is for group residence general within the multifamily district. Group residence general allows at least 15 or more, so it's our most broad group residence category. So you're allowed to have more than 15 unrelated individuals occupying one home. This would allow the facility to have up to 24 persons, including staff. Their website describes that they are a low barrier drop-in center for runaways, homeless, or at-risk youth who are under the age of 21. And this would allow them to expand their facility to house more individuals. The parking for group residence is 1 per bedroom. The applicant has a shared parking agreement with parcels around it. So that combined with helps with the parking requirements. Also, when you possibly consider those that they are serving, they may not necessarily have vehicles. But either way, if they're not asking for a reduction in parking with shared parking agreements, I think they're minimum anything. Property to the north is on 2-family residential and it's the Emporia Park. The property to the west is B multifamily and it's a parking lot. Property to the south is B multifamily and it's a single family dwelling. Property to the east is B multifamily and it's also a parking lot. This is kind of a mixed bag area. We have the hospital, you have some, you go farther north on Emporia, you really, that becomes a historic district and there's a lot more density and not density, but like there's more single family homes. You get closer to the hospital, you start getting a lot of just a mixture of different types of uses. Where they have other care facilities or just other things are almost like they locate next to hospitals. I think the Wichita Children's Home actually moved across the street. I think they used to be on the west side of Emporia in one of the houses up here. And I think they moved across the street. I think this was the old one.
Yes.
So the comprehensive plan identifies this site as appropriate for commercial uses, which essentially just kind of operates almost like a hotel. When you think of like non-related individuals, it could be a lot of transit movement in and out. So not necessarily inappropriate for the area, especially considering its proximity to the St. Francis Hospital. So we have heard, I specifically talked to Tina on the phone. I don't think Brad that a case plan on this has heard anymore. There's an individual who lives near this, and it's just a hard situation where there's a lot of different things going on. There's a lot of transient population in the area, regardless of these persons that are being served by the Wichita Children's Home, or just because of services that are near the hospital. And the individual who just had some concerns about the transient population in the area and these that are going to their residential property nearby. They were not really, they're concerned about, well, if we, expand the facility, that's just going to invite more of a transient population. They don't like to be in the house because they can't do the illegal things that they want to do, so they go outside the house to do it. So that was the concern that I heard. Wasn't necessarily pinpointed to the Wichita Children's Home. Some of it I'm sure was, but there's also just a lot of other transient population in the area as well. Overall, staff is recommending approval. It's going to sit to the planning commission on Thursday. Conditions of approval are that no sign should be allowed except for what is permitted in the B multifamily district for the sign code, which aren't a lot of signage. It's pretty minimal. And then the site will have to be developed and run by, following all state, federal, and local regulations. So with that, I can stand for any questions.
How many people can they house currently under their current?
Under their current, it's a good question. I am not aware of how many they can serve now.
I live up the street. I will also confirm what you were told. The transient traffic around that facility has definitely increased. I don't love my kid going to the park anymore because there are lots of folks.
That's what this
There's a lot of
the park is.
illness and drug use occurring. So yeah, I am not a fan of increasing their ability to house more people. It hasn't been great for the neighborhood. frankly.
So what would this allow as opposed to what it is now and what they're asking?
So if you, give me a moment here, let me look up something in the. What I'm looking up is whether or not group residence limited is already allowed by right. Group residence limited allows up to 15 by right, and group residence general then goes that extra step to say 15 or more. So that's what I'm going to look up here real quick.
Is the H&R applicant here for this?
While Phil's looking that up, if anybody does want to support Ronald McDonald Houses, cakeman.com, great Christmas gifts.
Yeah, so right now, group residence limited is permitted by rights in the B multifamily district, so that would allow up to 15 individuals that are unrelated. That's likely what they're operating under now. And so this just goes to the next step of 15 or more would be allowed by right. Or by the conditions.
So with the increase in occupants, is there also a requirement for an increase in staff, or they can do whatever?
We don't govern how they staff. Because a group resident in general could apply to like a frat house or things that don't necessarily need staff. So that's up to them and whether or not there's certain regulations that require them to have a ratio or not, and that's beyond the zoning code.
So are they wanting to increase the number of people that can live there or just people that they can serve throughout the day?
The group residence implies that they would allow individuals to spend the night. How they manage, how long they stay is up to them, because there's no limitation with group residence limited, like if, you know, there's a long-term, short-term. It just allows, so by serving, part of their service would be to provide a place to essentially live for a period of time, depending on what their programs allow. So that is implied with the residence, is that it would be overnight. It would allow them to be overnight.
Questions?
So this is a conditional use. Is there a mechanism where you could potentially allow a conditional use on a, say, a 1-year trial basis, and then it would revert back to the original? Or this is kind of a, once you allow it, it's there forever, isn't it?
Right. I've seen conditional uses have time limits. We've done those on car lots on Broadway. Essentially like, well, then, you know, nobody likes used car lots on Broadway type of thing. So like if that business goes out of business, and then, you know, that way that property doesn't allow used car lot, you know, after that, the new enter county method. The hard part would be the mechanism by which to judge, like, I guess the mechanism could be like, you could put a time limit condition, you would need to put language in there regarding how that is renewed, whether that's through another conditional use that's public hearing. It could be renewed by administrative adjustment, which is just done by planning staff. We do put a sign out so people could call and say, hey, what is this about? You know, oh, their, you know, time limit is up. I guess essentially what I think what you're going at is like, okay, let's give them more people, let's see how it affects the neighborhood. And then if not, then they have to re-up their conditional use, and we have enough opportunity to say, this was a good idea or not.
I'm not.
That is within the realm. We would just need to define how they could then renew.
I'm not proposing that in this case. I just was curious if that was something we could do in addition.
Yes, it doesn't happen often, but I think in the right scenario, like I said, with used car lots on Broadway, like give the market a chance on this one, and if this one peters out too, then we're not, you know, allowing somebody to
You
just.
just haven't been to MAPC.
Not yet. No.
It's tough when the agents or applicants don't show up, or, and there's nobody online, right, Anna?
Yeah.
To answer some of.
And one of the things we're working on with the notification is redoing our letter to really have a more centralized location. And here is your meeting schedule, so you're not finding all of them across the place.
I mean, I wonder.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, I wonder then, given, you know, the important work that they do, but also the questions that we have, if it's best to defer ruling on this until after MAPC hears that you have more time to contact the applicant. Okay, you go to answer questions.
So at DAB, that gets tricky because since DAB not a public hearing, I'm not sure if DAB has the ability to prolong the public hearing process. You
Good
could,
job.
your recommendation could be to council to defer action to send it back to DAB. So you can recommend that council defer action. Like MAPC can defer a case to a future date, but they are the public hearing, they have that like authority given to them. DAB is just advisory. So,
And we could, tonight, we could decide,
right, I mean, if you were to recommend denial and say planning commission recommends approval, it's a non-consent item, and that provides time even to get information to the council member by city council. With this being the end of, you know, kind of middle of December, you're looking middle to late January before the council anyway.
I did want to further completely understand, are these more like temporary overnight residents, or is it people that are actively, you know, moving from being homeless to transitioning to an actual
My best
apartment?
guess
I
is
mean, are they
probably
living-
a little bit of.
they're living there?
Kids, right?
Well, it's probably the in-between of possibly individuals who are out of foster care or not able to be in the system. Because it's people under 21, so like, I
Oh, it's
don't,
under-
so it probably could be a little bit, of obviously the Wichita Children's Home is meant to provide them, you know, a safe place and help them get on their feet, but it depends on the individual on whether or not they take advantage of the program and follow the rules, to where you could have kids where it is a stepping stone to get them a little bit on their feet, but then there could be those where it is a little bit more.
Other questions? Anyone want to entertain a motion?
I'll move to approve the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
I was gonna, I'm with you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so who said aye?
Raise your hands.
2,
Or
okay, opposed? Yeah.
so there could be.
No.
I'm thinking to do another. Another opinion, is there something else besides, because 4-4 means there's no recommendation.
What is it? Is there anything that would,
I can't hear you.
is there anything that would make it so that everybody else would entertain it? I mean, is there?
I think it's tough when they're not here to answer questions,
yeah.
'cause, like he lives so close to it and he lives in the thick of it, so.
And there's nobody here to answer questions.
Right, I mean, if
Can we
anything
do
else,
that?
I mean, it could go forward as a no recommendation, it's not a problem per se, and even just with the discussion, you probably feel informed when it's gonna be coming.
Yeah, sure.
Council will get some information from the commission.
I'm okay with it unless somebody else wants to entertain another motion.
So if we advance this with no recommendation, then does it have to go to the council, or can the planning commission just approve it and move on?
Because of a court case that's still pending in the state of Kansas, we're sending all conditional uses to council regardless of even if they're consent or not. So even if everyone's in agreement, where that court case stands in the appeals court is that conditional uses should be going to the governing body. So we are sending all of cons to the governing body anyway.
Okay, I'll make the motion that I suggested, which is recommend deferral to answer some questions from folks that are really
Recommend the well.
recommend deferral by city council and send it back to.
What, before you make that a formal motion, help me with how that's gonna help.
Well, I think that there's some unanswered questions from folks
Yeah, I
that
think-
live nearby that would bring it better informed.
That's part of the policy.
Yeah, and as making it adhere to these goals, because I think, like, right now, there's a lot of ambiguity of, like, I could argue either way that it meets both of these or not. And so I think having those questions answered would provide greater clarity in making a solid recommendation.
Even though it's advisory, I mean, it's an advisory board, I think it's helpful to feel like you have enough information. Like I said, it's tough when the agent applicant don't show up to answer questions. It's easier to say no than, you know, take a gamble, so. I'm good with whatever you guys wanna do.
Cause I wanna say yes to this, but I also wanna give respect to the folks that live in.
Yeah, like, I wanna say yes to homeless kids too, like, I
Right,
don't wanna
no.
paint myself like I'm not, I know what's come with this, that's all, and I think the people who live around there maybe don't know that this is a thing.
And if it's deferred, then perhaps then it's
Then-
time for you to talk to your neighbors,
Yeah,
have
that
them
could
come
happen.
to answer questions and ask the applicant. Because the applicant's not here.
It really would be nice if they were here.
Is there a way for you to relay that message to them too, that it would be helpful if they showed up? That'd be great. Okay, so do you wanna make your motion?
Yeah, I'll make a formal motion to recommend deferral, to council to send this conditional use back to them.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Who seconded the motion?
I did.
Thank you.
Alright, good. Thank you very much for that. Last case is PUD 2023-000.
Last case then, the zone change located at 1001 North St. Paul. It's on the corner of St. Paul and 9th. The applicant is requesting a zone change from single family residential to planned unit development. In order to have multi-family development. Go to the aerial map. Okay. I'm gonna start with some context around it. Start with some context around, so just for context, so there's a church here, I think it's Asbury. You got some
You can
single
use the
family.
pointer that's on there. I think the green light, it would be the one on the top. That works. Perfect.
Fancy.
Give them power. So you have a church.
I think that, on the 9th and St. Paul, I think it's all of that something. Asbury is on the other side.
I think it's vacant right now.
Okay, either way,
Yeah.
there's a church.
Sure.
Yeah.
Some single family homes, kind of surrounding here. This property is one developed parcel. It's zoned 2-family, but it has a conditional use for multifamily to allow for 6 dwelling units. I say that in context where it is a larger site, this is a smaller site, they're looking to do 6 dwelling units in a multifamily fashion. If you go to the site plan, scroll down a little bit. Even before there we go. So they are proposing one parcel in the PUD. The PUD language allows them to do anywhere from a combination of single family duplex or triplex, so no more than one building cannot get more than 3 dwelling units in it. But their end result is to get no more than 6 dwelling units. That's where they cap it. So essentially, they're looking to provide the same number of dwelling units as there is kitty corner across the street. It is on a smaller parcel than that one. The custom development standards to accomplish this, it actually meets pretty much everything as this current single family residential does. Obviously, the density is the big one. But in terms of setbacks, the rear setback is on the left because your narrow street frontage is here. So this is front, so this is rear, this is side, and this is side. Instead of a 20-foot rear setback, it's a 10-foot rear setback. So that's the only difference between even TF3 development standards and the PUD development standards. Is a smaller, this building here being closer to this property line than a house could be if it was a single family home or just a duplex. Otherwise, height standard is capped at 35 feet. All the other setbacks are met at 6 feet off of this, 15 off of 9th Street, 25 feet off of St. Paul. Because it's multifamily, the PUD didn't identify this, but staff is recommending that it be included. Since they want to do multifamily development, the standard screening and landscaping requirements, which means the screening fence on the west and north, and then landscaping requirements along St. Paul and 9th Streets, as well as the buffer trees on the west and the north as well, to bring that into compliance. So staff is recommending that that be added to the PUD language with it. The comprehensive plan identifies it for residential, so we dig a little bit deeper for land use compatibility guidelines. We were looking for context, I already kind of brought this up. There is 6 dwelling units to the southeast of this. The property is moving to the south of this church. So you're looking at single family developments around it. And so there's a bit of context and a bit of non-context. So it provides the opportunity for diverse housing within the ECA, which is which this place for people. Recommends, encourages infill development that is contextual. That's always the buzzword, but it's contextual. There's something like it nearby. There's also the church to the south, which is not residential. So it's probably quasi contextual, knowing the properties to the north are single family. Overall, staff is recommending approval. This goes to, this was at planning commission on November 30th as well. The planning commission recommended approval 12-0. There was no public comments on this case. And I don't think we've received any after the fact either for the purchase petition here to end this coming Thursday. So if folks were here, they find out about it and they still have time to do that if they want to. We have agent here if you have any questions for the agent representing this case. And I can stand for any questions. I should say that planning commission recommended approval subject to staff recommendation within the screening.
Any questions for staff?
So, your design criteria, will it be, do you think it'll be similar to what is on the southeast corner?
In talking with the owner, I think he's still, trying to decide on the exact style of building what he's doing, and that's what left it up into there could be 2 duplexes or triplexes. But like you said, keeping it at that 6 minimum, or 6 max units total, so. He's not quite sure if he's gonna do duplex or triplex or something. 2 triplexes.
It's the style of construction I'm asking about, not the.
I have not seen style concept. We were just working out the site.
More of a general question, of these trees that require to be planted, are there any, probably not any enforcement or way to ensure that they get maintained and that they stay alive?
Similar to the gentleman who's giving a form, a lot of which side is complaint based. That is the unfortunate part about enforcement. They are required to plant them and maintain them, but if they would choose dying, it's not as they matter the owner to do it or somebody to file a complaint to say this hasn't been done.
Any questions for the, sure.
Are you ready for public comment?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I do realize for the new members on the dab, welcome. I am Vincent Hancock. I am now the president-elect of Delano Neighborhood Association. That's at the last meeting. Anna, do you have some pictures that I sent you earlier today? While you're working on that. Thank you for being here, Mr. Applicant. That's always good for you guys. One thing I think I would do if I was developing something, is I'd have some sketches together. I mean, ink on a napkin to give you guys a visualization. Here's what this could be. I wouldn't be applying for a zoning change until I actually knew what I was going to put on the land. Whether or not that affects your decision, that's up to you guys. I am deeply concerned, so concerned that I emailed Phyllis Voss and our council member earlier today about the enforceability of zoning changes, specifically the conditions in a PUD. We have, and Anna's working on the pictures, we have a situation located at 220 South Handley, which for those who are not great at math, that's 1 block south of this district, where a PUD was granted with a few conditions. I'm going to read those conditions and then you get to see the pictures, what they go with. One of them was that the exterior should have horizontal siding. The siding shall not exceed 12 inches. The exterior walls shall be in an earth tone, and signage would be required to get external approval. Those were the 4 PUDs that were, or the 4 conditions of that PUD. 3 of the 4 of them are just flat out the window. PUD conditions don't mean squat. Those are the 5 words I want you to remember. We don't know who's supposed to enforce it. I actually pulled out a tape measure, 16-inch siding. Not 12, not 13, not 14, 16-inch siding. And the siding goes up and down and then left and right. Who's gonna enforce this? You've heard me say it before. How do you know when a politician's telling the truth, not counting Maggie? The politician lies when their lips move. How do you know when a developer's lying? There's no way to tell the honest developer from the dishonest developer. So I think we need clawbacks in every single one of these that says, if you don't do the conditions, you lose your certificate of occupancy until you get it fixed.
Vince, did I receive your email? Can you forward it to me if you have it on your phone?
I'll just say, if any of you wants to drive by there, it's called the Dumont. It's a 3-story, 96-unit apartment complex. And it's real easy to see as you drive by that all of these conditions were just,
The one
ignored.
that's right behind the senior services,
Yeah, right behind senior services,
What's that?
Address?
220 Southampton.
you can't miss it. They tore down a church.
Tore down a church and 2 houses. And the plans that were brought in front of the district advisory board were a completely different set of plans. We engineered the really nice engineer. Emailed a really nice engineer to say, hey, what's going on? He says, don't contact me. I'm no longer associated with the project. So I just want to make sure the honest developers will have no problems with drawbacks because they go, these are reasonable conditions. I absolutely plan on doing the conditions. But I think we need to have insurance against the dishonest developer that goes, nice conditions. And throw them away, because that's what's happening in a different PUD right now. So I just ask that we consider that, and Philip, if you can tell your boss who's supposed to enforce this, because they're asleep at the wheel on this one. Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you.
Any other questions? Sure, Susan.
I'd be happy just to make, I guess it's not necessarily a question, but a comment that Mr. Washburn was mentioning the style of the architecture. That's what I have a concern for also, and we'd like to make sure our whole neighborhood jokes about the chicken coops went up at 13th McLean. And I mean, there's chicken
Call them
coops.
something much nicer than I
Yeah,
do.
but there's chicken coops going into all the open pockets around the district, and for there to be some serious language in there that it's like, that it's in the style and the architecture that fits within the neighborhood.
We talked a little bit about that because like Delano has an overlay that is more specific to what those regulations and designs need to look like. Not every neighborhood has those.
Right.
Um,
And this area
It's-
unfortunately doesn't.
which is a huge problem, so.
Is there a way we can request that we see some basic architecture?
I mean, with it being a PUD, there could be huge added to the PUD that the architecture has to be compatible with that ceramic. You could even put under like dipping maple roofs, or the other way, prohibiting like modern, single slants. Things like that, that is allowed to be written into managing development language. And when doing that, then when you go to get a building permit, it's saying, hey, there's architectural controls in here, because we get in with community unit plans all the time, which are like the commercial developments, where then it's sent to planning staff for review to say whether or not the architecture is okay before they get a building.
Naive question, but would the PUD enforcement fall to the MABCD?
Yes.
And they have a limited number of inspectors that are, trying to cover the zone, okay. That came up and it's like, okay. I heard some.
It seems a little late, but at the CO stage to be looking at this, but is there, is it really just permit issuance where that would be the best place to address architectural controls? And I mean, when does that get double checked that that's in fact what they built? Is that at the CO or interim inspection?
Answer that question, like it's beyond like, so
Okay.
I hate to say like, not my department, because like,
No,
I hate that answer, but when it comes to like the nuts and the bolts of like the building construction and, when they, do inspections and things like that, like what you all things, are they inspecting, hey, did what they built match the plans that were approved in terms of They should, but yeah, I don't know if I have an answer to that question.
I can find out.
My experience, I was a contractor for many years and, you know, pulling a permit is based on, you know, the footprint. And, you know, was it 1 story, 2 stories? There's never really architectural requirements that I know of. I mean, you don't want the roof's got to drain.
This,
Doesn't matter if it's got
With this
1
being-
bench or
right,
4
with this
benches.
being the zoning district, the PUD becomes the zoning for this property. When a building permit is pulled on a PUD property, they go to read the the building plan reviewers and MABCD go to the PUD requirements, there's architectural controls. Okay, let's look through the submitted package. Do they have building renderings? If they don't, they need to submit them. Like that is something that can and becomes part of the building permit process if they're in the PUD.
That we should be making sure that our recommendations would include architectural control concerns. I guess that's what I'm hearing.
Is to review, to review, have them available for review before the
And
final.
I was saying you would need to provide guidance as to what the building is to look like. You can say there needs to be architectural controls, well, that just means, okay, you have
All right, no, we have
there's
to
no
define it.
rule
Yeah.
for us to go by as to what is okay and what's not okay.
Would have to be like super specific, or be like neighborhood architectural congruity.
Like
Like,
compatible with the
difficult for
existing
neighbors.
architecture on the residential homes, you know.
Gabled roofs that will eliminate the chicken coops
No.
and the outhouses.
You know, hip or gable roof, you know, in the general style compatible with the architecture in the neighborhood. You can even go do all that and say, you know, it shall not include a single pitch, you know, roof. If you're really concerned that that's how it's gonna be.
Councilmember Ballard, so I did receive the pictures that Vincent was referring to, so I wanna pull them up real quick. These are the images that he was referring to.
And this would be a little bit more like the chicken coop, but have you ever seen a single family home with 16-inch siding? And
Trying to be creative, Vince.
Right.
Just saying, so,
We had a young kid in here. who built the-
vertical siding, you know, I've never seen vertical siding on a single family home.
oh yeah, I mean, it's, board and batten, board and batten, that's very common.
And again, for that particular PUD,
Well,
it's in the PUD that it would be horizontal siding. So I know
There is
yeah, there is some. So I just want to make sure that if MABCD is supposed to be making sure that it sticks to the language, you know, that type of language is not in this PUD. But I just want to make sure that if we're going to put conditions in a PUD, and in this case, the biggest thing is put some landscaping, you know, some trees along the north end. That's no big deal. Everybody will get that. But what happens if it doesn't happen? Our enforcement arm isn't doing the job. That's my concern.
Any other questions, or would anyone like to entertain a motion?
I'm tired.
You guys know what my perspective is already on my home. Or structures,
so you make a motion, Bill.
well, I've gotta finish my thought here for a minute. Precedents are something that's really dangerous to set in many cases. But I guess I'm gonna take a shot at it, see if you guys go for it. I guess I would make a motion that we approve the request with condition added. As I don't know if what would we call an overlay, Philip? What is it? Just a condition?
Just for a PUD, you're gonna basically be adding this language to the rules of the PUD.
Okay, then I'd like to add language that a single plane roof construction is not allowed.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Nobody wants that.
Any other concerns about the general architectural aesthetic, or we just want
The
to?
problem with this neighborhood is it's a mix. I used to live over there on Mount Carmel and Murdoch. And it's a mix. It's not eclectic, it's just a mix. And I don't know how you could say it's architecturally compliant or it isn't.
Just.
You agree?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You have, yeah, just the ranch you know, you've got cottages, you have the lower sloped roofs, you have.
It's just it's the design constraint that I'd like to stay away from. That exists, as an example, my mode of example is 13 to 20.
Right.
Well, if you just use both sets of language, say gable roofs and no single pitch roof. That would cover.
Typically hip or gable goes.
Hip or gable, yes.
That's pretty traditional.
Right.
Structure.
Just fits in with the
I'd be okay
neighborhood
with
better.
Right.
Yeah.
Adding hip or gable.
Well, I don't know, wait a minute, I don't think you can specify it's four gable roof. We define a four gable roof.
No, hip or gable.
Huh?
Hip or gable.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Uh,
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Oh, no.
Anyone have any updates for the greater good of the group? The only thing I have is next month, on the 8th, which is typically when our meeting would be, is when the new council and mayor are being sworn in, so we're moving it to Tuesday. Oh, okay, the 9th. Yeah, but we're moving the meeting to January the 9th, which is on a Tuesday.
Oh, it is?
Normally it would be on the 8th on a Monday.
The 8th is gonna be the
The
swearing
swearing
in.
in, so we're moving it to the Tuesday, the 9th.
All right.
And I will send reminders later this month, and then you will receive the agenda the week before the night.
I'm new, hi, Josh Stephenholler, Indian Hills River Bend, just moved over from District
job.
1 in September,
Nice to meet
and
you.
I was on their tab over there, so I'm excited to keep doing
Okay.
good work over here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you knew your stuff tonight.
I'm also new. I
It's very
have been MIA for a few meetings, due to some family stuff, but I'm thrilled to be part of the group. So I live on it for you.
We like having you. here.
Andy's new too.
You as well. I live in Monaco, but near 37th in Arkansas. In
I'm sorry, where in Arkansas?
near 37th in Arkansas.
Okay.
We're right by you.
Okay.
But happy to be a part of this.
Nice to have you.
Arkansas Avenue.
Siri's helping you.
Okay, anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Oh, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Wonderful.